The year was 2157, and humanity had been part of the Galactic Confederation for just 15 years. 27 alien species made up this vast alliance, and humans were the newest members. Despite their quick growth and fast learning, other species still looked down on them. Lieutenant Jack Harper stood at his post on the bridge of the GCS Harmony, a massive Confederation vessel. As a liaison officer, his job was to represent Earth's interests. It wasn't easy. The other species often ignored his input or treated it as a joke. "Lieutenant Harper, your presence is requested in the council chamber," a voice announced over the comm system. Jack straightened his blue uniform and made his way through the ship's wide corridors. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved past him. Some had too many limbs. Others had skin that changed color. A few floated rather than walked. In the council chamber, representatives from all 27 species sat in a semicircle. Large screens showed images of a human colony on Proxima Centauri, the closest habitable planet to Earth. The colony was home to 750,000 people. It was also where Jack's wife Susan and their 8-year-old daughter Lily lived. "We have received a disturbing report," said Counselor Jen, a tall, thin alien with pale blue skin. "The Vraxus fleet has moved into the Proxima Centauri system without authorization." Jack felt his heart beat faster. The Vraxus were known as aggressive warriors who had been quiet for decades. Why were they at a human colony now? "What are their intentions?" Jack asked. "Unknown," replied Jen. "But their weapons are powered up." The main screen suddenly showed a live feed from the colony. Jack could see the dome-covered city where his family lived. Then he saw the Vraxus ships, huge, black vessels that looked like sharp teeth against the sky. "We must send ships to protect the colony," Jack said, his voice urgent. Counselor Drell, a squat reptilian creature, shook his head. "We cannot act without a full council vote. The Vraxus are founding members of the Confederation." Jack watched in horror as the first Vraxus weapons fired. Red beams cut through the colony's protective shields. Buildings crumbled. The air inside the domes vented into space. "They're killing everyone," Jack shouted. "We have to stop them." The council erupted in debate. Some wanted immediate action. Others called for patience and discussion. Jack stood frozen, watching the screens as the colony was destroyed section by section. He spotted the residential area where his family lived. A Vraxus beam hit it directly. The entire section exploded in a flash of light. "Susan, Lily," Jack whispered, his legs giving out beneath him. For 6 hours, the council debated while the Vraxus methodically destroyed the entire colony. By the time they finished their attack, all 750,000 colonists were dead. Then the Vraxus ships simply left the system. Finally, the council voted on their response. A formal reprimand. Nothing more. "A reprimand," Jack said, his voice hollow. "They killed everyone, and you're sending them a strongly worded message." "It is the diplomatic solution," Counselor Jen said. "We cannot risk a war with the Vraxus." Something broke inside Jack Harper at that moment. It wasn't just him. On Earth and every human settlement across space, people watched the massacre and the Council's weak response. Something broke inside all of humanity. Jack was given compassionate leave to return to Earth. As his shuttle left the GCS Harmony, he looked out at the stars. His eyes were dry. He had no more tears left. Only a cold, hard resolve remained. On Earth, military leaders and scientists were already meeting in secret. The Confederation had failed humanity. The Vraxus had taken everything from Jack Harper and thousands of others. Humanity would not forget. Humanity would not forgive. Humanity had snapped, and the stars would soon know their vengeance. 6 months passed since the Proxima Centauri massacre. Earth had gone quiet. Too quiet, according to the Confederation observers. They expected protests, demands, or threats. Instead, humanity simply withdrew. On a cold January morning, Earth officially left the Galactic Confederation. The alien ambassadors were given 48 hours to leave the solar system. No explanation was offered. No negotiations were entertained. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a facility unknown even to most of Earth's government, Jack Harper sat in a small white room. Wires connected his head to a strange machine that hummed softly. "Are you ready to continue, Lieutenant?" asked Admiral Diane Miller. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too much war. "Yes, Mom," Jack replied. His voice was flat. He hadn't really spoken with emotion since that day on the Harmony. Dr. Alan Hayes adjusted some settings on the machine. He was a thin man with kind eyes behind thick glasses. "Remember, we're measuring your emotional response. Think about what happened at Proxima." Jack closed his eyes. He thought about Susan's laugh. He thought about Lily's first steps. He thought about the last video call when Lily showed him the model spaceship she had built. Then he thought about the red beam hitting their home. The machine began to vibrate. The lights in the room flickered. "That's it," Dr. Hayes whispered. "Don't hold back, Jack." Jack let the grief wash over him. 6 months of bottled rage and sorrow poured out. The machine's hum became a high-pitched whine. "Power levels exceeding expected parameters," a technician called out. "Keep going," Admiral Miller ordered. Jack screamed, not with his voice, but with his mind, with his heart, with his soul. The lights went out. Emergency lights kicked on, bathing the room in red. Then those failed too. When the power finally came back an hour later, Admiral Miller gathered the team in the main lab. "What we witnessed today confirms our theory," she said. "Human emotion, especially grief, can be converted into energy through quantum entanglement. Dr. Hayes calls it the grief engine." Dr. Hayes pointed to a map showing the facility and the surrounding 50 miles. Everything electronic in this area was disabled by Lieutenant Harper's emotional output. "Imagine what we could do if we could focus it." Jack stood by the window, looking at the mountains. "How soon until we can use it against the Vraxus?" "We need more test subjects," Dr. Hayes said. "People who lost loved ones in the attack. Their grief must be fresh, powerful." "I know others like me," Jack said. "They'll volunteer." Over the next months, more survivors came to the facility. Each one carried a similar story of loss. Each one channeled their grief into the machines. Meanwhile, on the far side of the moon, Earth began building ships in secret. Not the sleek, elegant vessels of the Confederation, but dark, angular ships built for one purpose only. Jack was given command of a special squadron. They called themselves Ghost Squadron, pilots who had lost everything, and now only lived for vengeance. Their fighters were small and fast, each powered by its pilot's grief. 1 year after leaving the Confederation, Earth was ready. The fleet gathered in the shadow of Jupiter, hidden from prying eyes. Admiral Miller addressed the captains from the bridge of the largest ship, the U.S. Vengeance. "The Confederation failed us," she said. "The Vraxus thought they could kill our people without consequences. Today, we show them how wrong they were." Jack sat in his fighter, looking at a picture of Susan and Lily. "I'm coming for them," he whispered. "We all are." The fleet entered warp, disappearing in flashes of blue light. Humanity had prepared in silence. Now, the stars would hear their roar. The Vraxus outpost on Terrillis IV was a busy place. It served as a refueling station and trading hub for the warrior race. Thousands of Vraxus moved through its spaceport every day. None of them expected any trouble. After all, no one dared to attack the Vraxus. The first sign that something was wrong came when their long-range sensors went dark. The Vraxus commander, a battle-scarred veteran named Krell, ordered a system check. "Probably just a solar flare," he told his officers. Then their short-range sensors failed too. Krell felt a chill. This was not normal. "Battle stations," he ordered. "Power up all weapons." In the darkness of space beyond the outpost, the human fleet waited. Captain Frank Williams sat in the command chair of the U.S. Vengeance, a massive black ship built for war. All ships report ready, his first officer said. Frank nodded. Ghost Squadron, you have clearance to begin your attack run. Inside his fighter, Commander Jack Harper closed his eyes briefly. He touched the small photo of his wife and daughter taped to his control panel. Ghost Squadron, form up on me, he said into his comm. Remember your training. Remember why we're here. 12 small fighters moved forward. Each was painted matte black with no markings. Each carried weapons powered by the pilot's grief. The Vrax finally spotted them when they were almost in firing range. Alarms sounded across the outpost. There they are, Jack said. Ghost Squadron, weapons hot. Let them feel what we felt. The human fighters attacked with incredible speed. Their first shots tore through the Vrax shields as if they weren't there. Impossible, Krell shouted as reports of damage flooded in. Their weapons can't be that powerful. The U.S. Vengeance and the rest of the fleet moved in. Their main guns fired, each shot guided by the combined grief of the weapons officers. On the outpost, panic spread. The Vrax tried to launch their fighters, but many were destroyed before they could leave their hangars. This is for Proxima, Jack shouted as he fired again and again. His squadron moved like they shared one mind. They dodged Vrax fire with ease. When a Vrax ship managed to hit one of the human fighters, the shields held firm. The battle lasted less than an hour. When it was over, the Vrax outpost lay in ruins. Their ships were destroyed or disabled. The survivors huddled in shelters, unable to believe what had happened. Captain Williams opened a channel to the outpost. Commander Krell, this is Captain Frank Williams of Earth. Do you surrender? There was a long pause before Krell responded. We surrender. Who are you people? How did you do this? We are the ones you thought you could kill without consequences. Frank replied. Tell your leaders, this is just the beginning. As the human fleet prepared to leave, 3 Confederation ships arrived. They had detected the battle from a nearby system. A Zularian ambassador appeared on the main screen of the Vengeance. Earth vessels, stand down immediately. You have violated Confederation law by attacking a member world. Admiral Miller stepped forward. We are no longer bound by your laws. The Vrax murdered our people while you debated. You had your chance for justice. Now it's our turn. The ambassador's face showed shock. This will mean war with the entire Confederation. Miller smiled coldly. If that's what it takes. The human fleet jumped to warp, leaving the stunned Confederation ships behind. In his fighter, Jack felt something he hadn't felt in over a year: satisfaction. It wasn't happiness. He doubted he would ever feel that again. But for the first time since losing Susan and Lily, he felt like he had a purpose. The Vrax had learned what it meant to face humanity's wrath. And this was only the first lesson. News of the attack on Terrillis IV spread quickly through the galaxy. The Vrax, who had never known defeat, were shocked. The Confederation Council called emergency meetings, and humanity prepared for more. 3 months after the first strike, Earth forces had hit 5 more Vrax outposts. Each attack followed the same pattern: quick, overwhelming force, then disappearance before Confederation ships could respond. In his lab beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Alan Hayes worked tirelessly to improve the grief engine technology. He looked up as Jack entered the room. Commander Harper, he said with a tired smile. Just in time. We've made a breakthrough. Jack looked at the new fighter helmet on the table. It was sleeker than the earlier models, with fine wires running through the inside. This will help you focus your grief more precisely, Dr. Hayes explained. Instead of a wide burst of energy, you can create a beam that cuts through specific targets. Jack picked up the helmet. When can my squadron test these? Vice Admiral Rodriguez wants you to try them on the next mission. You're heading to Vrax Colony 7. Jack nodded. Colony 7 was one of the largest Vrax military bases outside their home system. It would be their most ambitious target yet. Meanwhile, on the Vrax homeworld of Vraxus Prime, Emperor Kartok faced his war council. For the first time in recorded Vrax history, they were discussing surrender terms. "We cannot match their weapons," said General Morvek, his voice low with shame. "6 bases destroyed, thousands of warriors dead, and we haven't destroyed a single human ship." Emperor Kartok slammed his fist on the table. "We are Vrax. We do not surrender. Our scientists say the humans are using some kind of emotion-based weapon," another council member said. "They believe the humans are channeling their grief over Proxima Centauri." The Emperor grew quiet. "So this is all because of that colony. One small attack has led to this." No one answered. They all knew it was true. "Prepare a peace offering," the Emperor finally said. "Tell the humans we will give them 3 star systems as compensation for their lost colony." In the Tau Ceti system, Earth had established Forward Base Alpha. It was here that the Vrax message arrived. Vice Admiral Kate Rodriguez read it, then passed it to Admiral Miller. "They think they can buy us off," Miller said, "as if star systems could replace the lives they took." She drafted a simple reply. "The only acceptable outcome is unconditional surrender." As Earth continued its campaign, something unexpected happened. Other species that had suffered under Vrax aggression began to reach out to humanity. The Zell, masters of biotechnology, were the first. They had lost worlds to the Vrax centuries ago. Now they offered humanity enhanced physical abilities in exchange for protection. "Our scientists can make your soldiers stronger, faster, able to heal quickly," the Zell ambassador told Admiral Miller. "All we ask is that when the Vrax are defeated, you remember who stood with you." Similar offers came from the Durrani, the Tellarites, and others. Species that had never dared to stand against the Vrax found courage in humanity's example. In his quarters on the U.S. Vengeance, Jack looked at the star chart showing Vrax territory. Over a dozen worlds marked with red indicated successful strikes. But the Vrax homeworld remained untouched. "We're coming for you next," he whispered. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. A young officer stood there. "Commander Harper, Ghost Squadron is assembled in the briefing room. Vice Admiral Rodriguez has arrived with your next mission." Jack nodded and put on his new helmet. It fit perfectly. "Time to show the Vrax what happens when you push humanity too far," he said. The officer nodded. "Yes, sir. All the way to their homeworld, sir." Jack smiled grimly. All the way. Vraxus Prime glowed blue-green in the darkness of space. It was a beautiful world with 3 moons and rings of ice that sparkled in the light of its sun. For thousands of years, it had been the untouchable heart of the Vrax Empire. No enemy had ever reached it. Until today. The human fleet appeared suddenly, dropping out of warp less than 10,000 miles from the planet. 57 ships, led by the massive U.S. Vengeance. They moved in perfect formation, their black hulls absorbing light rather than reflecting it. On the planet below, alarms sounded. The Vrax home defense fleet scrambled to respond. Emperor Kartok was rushed to a bunker deep beneath the Imperial Palace. "How did they get past our early warning systems?" the Emperor demanded. "Unknown, Your Majesty," a general replied, his voice shaking. "Our sensors didn't detect them until they were already here." In space, Jack Harper led Ghost Squadron toward the planet. His fighters moved like shadows between the larger Earth ships. "All pilots, activate your grief engines," he ordered. "Full power. Let them feel everything we felt." The squadron's weapons glowed with an eerie blue light. The energy readings from each fighter jumped to levels that would have been impossible just months ago. The Vrax ships opened fire first. Energy beams and missiles streaked toward the human fleet. "Shields holding," reported Captain Williams from the Vengeance. All ships returned fire. What followed wasn't really a battle. It was a slaughter. The human weapons cut through Vrax shields and hulls as if they were made of paper. Vrax ships exploded or drifted powerless in space. Jack led his squadron straight for the planet's surface. Their target, the Imperial Palace. "Ghost 3, on your left," Jack called as a Vrax fighter tried to intercept them. Ghost 3, piloted by Lisa Reeves, who had lost her entire family on Proxima, swerved and fired in one smooth motion. The Vrax fighter disappeared in a ball of flame. They broke through the atmosphere, flying low over the Vrax capital city. The buildings were tall and sharp, like teeth pushing up from the ground. The palace sat at the center, a massive structure of black stone and metal. "There it is," Jack said. "Ghost Squadron, focus fire on the main defense shield." 12 beams of grief-powered energy struck the shield at the same point. It held for 3 seconds, then collapsed. The palace was exposed. Jack landed his fighter in the main courtyard. The rest of the squadron formed a perimeter around him. Earth Marines poured out of transport ships that followed them down. The palace guards fought bravely, but were quickly overwhelmed. Jack led a small team straight to the Emperor's bunker. The door, though made of metal 2 feet thick, couldn't withstand the focused beam of Jack's weapon. When they entered, Emperor Kartok stood tall, surrounded by his guards. "Kill them," the Emperor ordered. The guards hesitated. They had seen what had happened to their fleet. Jack stepped forward. "Emperor Kartok, you are under arrest for the murder of 750,000 humans on Proxima Centauri." The Emperor laughed. "You think you can put me on trial? I am Vrax." "Yes," Jack said calmly. "You will face justice, not just for Proxima, but for all the worlds you've destroyed, all the species you've hurt." One by one, the guards put down their weapons. Jack approached the Emperor. For a moment, he thought about pulling the trigger, ending it all right there. Susan and Lily's faces flashed in his mind. Instead, he placed restraints on the Emperor's wrists. This isn't just about revenge anymore. It's about justice. As they led the Emperor out, Jack sent a message to the fleet. "Palace secure. Emperor captured. Mission accomplished." Across the planet, Vrax military commanders were surrendering. The war wasn't over, but its outcome was no longer in doubt. Humanity had broken the unbreakable. The mighty Vrax had fallen. The trial of Emperor Kartok was broadcast to every world in the galaxy. It took place on a neutral space station orbiting Earth's moon. Representatives from 36 species attended, including all 27 members of the Galactic Confederation. Jack sat in the front row of the viewing area. He wore his formal military uniform with the new rank of Admiral on his shoulders. The past 2 months since the fall of Vraxus Prime had been busy. Humanity had shifted from war to establishing a new order. "All rise," called the bailiff as the 7 judges entered the chamber. They came from 7 different worlds, including Earth. Admiral Diane Miller represented humanity on the panel. Emperor Kartok was brought in wearing simple gray clothes instead of his royal garments. He still tried to look proud, but his eyes darted nervously around the room. "Emperor Kartok of the Vrax," began the lead judge, "you stand accused of genocide, war crimes, and crimes against sentient beings. How do you plead?" "I recognize no authority here," the Emperor replied. The Vrax answer to no one. "Noted," said the judge. "The prosecution may begin." What followed shocked even Jack. For 3 days, evidence was presented not just about the attack on Proxima Centauri, but about centuries of Vrax atrocities, worlds destroyed, species enslaved, entire civilizations wiped out while the Confederation looked the other way. On the 4th day, Admiral Miller presented the most damning evidence of all. Records showing that members of the Confederation Council had known about the planned attack on Proxima Centauri in advance. Some had been paid by the Vrax to stay silent. Others had been promised territory or technology. The Confederation representatives squirmed in their seats as their complicity was exposed to the galaxy. "This was never just about the Vrax," Admiral Miller said. "This was about a system that allowed the powerful to prey on the weak. A system that failed humanity, and many others before us." When the verdict came, it was unanimous. Guilty on all counts. The sentence was unusual but fitting. Emperor Kartok would spend the rest of his life in a small habitat built on the ruins of Proxima Centauri. He would live where so many had died because of him. As the trial ended, the real shock came. Admiral Miller stood before the assembled representatives and made an announcement. Earth hereby declares the Galactic Confederation dissolved. In its place, we propose the formation of the Terran Alliance, a new coalition based on mutual protection and true justice. The chamber erupted in chaos. Some species shouted in anger. Others applauded. The Confederation representatives tried to object, but their voices were drowned out. Jack watched as Admiral Miller held up her hands for silence. The crimes exposed in this trial make it clear that the Confederation is beyond saving, she said. Those council members who took bribes will also face trial. Those species who wish to join our alliance are welcome. Those who do not can stand alone. In the days that followed, 15 species immediately joined the Terran Alliance. The Zell were first, followed by others who had suffered under Vraxus rule. Even some former Confederation loyalists, seeing which way the wind was blowing, asked to join. The Vraxus themselves were not destroyed. Their military was disbanded, their colonies granted independence, but the species was allowed to survive under new leadership. Jack met with Admiral Miller after the alliance was formalized. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now we build something better than what came before," she replied. "The grief engine gave us power, but it's what we do with that power that matters." Jack nodded. The grief was still there inside him. It would always be there. But for the first time, he could see a future beyond vengeance. "Susan and Lily would want that," he said quietly. "A better galaxy, a safer one." "Yes," Miller agreed. "And that's exactly what we're going to build." 5 years passed since the fall of Vraxus Prime. The galaxy had changed in ways few could have imagined. The Terran Alliance now included 15 species, with humanity as the unofficial leader. The old Confederation was gone, its corrupt officials tried and punished, its structure dismantled. Admiral Jack Harper stood at the window of his office on Earth's orbital command station. At 42, his hair was starting to gray at the temples. The view below showed Earth, peaceful and blue. Above, ships from a dozen worlds moved in careful patterns, a dance of cooperation that would have seemed impossible just years ago. "Admiral, Dr. Hayes is here to see you," his assistant said over the comm. "Send him in." Dr. Alan Hayes looked older too, but there was an energy in his step that hadn't been there during the war. He carried a small device that glowed with soft blue light. "Jack," he said with a smile. "I've done it." Jack gestured to a chair. "Tell me." "We've reversed the grief engine," Dr. Hayes said, setting the device on the desk. "Instead of channeling negative emotions to destroy, it can channel positive ones to create and heal." Jack stared at the device. "How does it work?" "Love, hope, joy. They create energy just like grief and rage did. But this energy repairs instead of damages." Hayes leaned forward. "We've already tested it on some of the devastated areas of Proxima. Centauri B plants are growing again. The atmosphere is starting to rebuild." Jack touched the device gently. "Susan would have loved this. She was always talking about healing, not hurting." "That's why I want you to lead the first official mission," Hayes said. "We're calling it the Renewal Project." Later that week, Jack traveled to Proxima Centauri for the first time since the massacre. A small colony had been established there, mostly scientists and engineers working on the restoration. And something else had been built, a memorial to those who died. Jack walked slowly through the garden of stone markers. Each one bore the name of a person lost in the attack. He found the ones he was looking for near the center. Susan Harper, Lily Harper. He knelt before them, placing his hand on the cool stone. "We did it," he whispered. "We made them pay, but now we're trying to build something better." "They would be proud," said a voice behind him. Jack turned to see a woman with dark hair streaked with silver. She wore the uniform of the science division. "Dr. Olivia Chen," she said, extending her hand. "I lost my brother here. He was a teacher." Jack shook her hand. "I'm sorry for your loss. I read about what you did," she said. Ghost Squadron. The capture of the Emperor. You became a legend, Admiral Harper. Jack looked back at the stones. I was just a man who lost everything. And now? She asked. He thought about it. Now I'm trying to find something again. A purpose beyond vengeance. That's why I'm here too, she said. I'm leading the biological restoration team. We're using the new engine technology to accelerate plant growth. They walked together through the memorial garden, talking about the restoration project. For the first time in years, Jack felt something stir inside him. Not the burning rage that had driven him for so long, but something gentler. Interest, connection, maybe even hope. As the sun set over the partially rebuilt colony, Jack looked up at the stars. The same stars that had witnessed humanity's vengeance were now watching something new emerge from the ashes of so much loss. We're not done yet, he told Olivia. There's still so much to fix in this galaxy. She nodded. But this time we're building, not breaking. Yes, Jack said. This time we create. And somewhere, deep in his heart, he hoped Susan and Lily could see what their tragedy had eventually led to. A chance for a better universe. 10 years after the Proxima Centauri massacre, the galaxy was a very different place. The Terran Alliance had grown to include 23 species. The grief engine technology, once a weapon of war, now powered ships, healed worlds, and built cities. Admiral Jack Harper and Dr. Olivia Chen stood on the bridge of the U.S. Hope, the newest and largest ship in the Alliance fleet. Unlike the black warships of the past, the Hope was silver and blue, built for exploration rather than destruction. All systems are ready, reported the first officer, a young woman named Amy Grant. Thank you, Commander, Jack said. Set course for the Andromeda Reach. The Andromeda Reach was a region of space at the edge of the known galaxy. No Confederation or Vraxus ships had ever ventured there. It was a true frontier. Olivia, now Jack's wife of 3 years, squeezed his hand. Nervous? A little, he admitted. This is different from leading an attack. That's why you're the right person for this mission, she said. You know the cost of war better than anyone. The Hope entered warp, its engines powered by the positive emotions of its crew. Dr. Hayes had refined the technology so well that even small amounts of joy or excitement could generate enormous power. 3 weeks later, they arrived at an uncharted star system. Scans showed a habitable planet with signs of civilization. Primitive technology, reported the science officer, similar to Earth's early 21st century. Jack was about to order more scans when the ship's sensors detected something alarming. A massive fleet approaching the planet. They're not responding to hails, Amy said. Weapons are powered up. Jack recognized the ship design. Harvesters. We've heard rumors about them from other species. The harvesters were said to find developing worlds, take their resources, and sometimes their people, leaving nothing behind. They're going to attack that planet, Olivia said. Those people have no way to defend themselves. Jack faced a choice. The Alliance's primary rule was non-interference with developing civilizations, but he couldn't stand by and watch another massacre. Battle stations, he ordered. Power up both engines. The Hope carried both versions of the engine technology, the original Grief engine for weapons and the newer Joy engine for shields and healing. They hadn't been used together before. The ship moved between the Harvester fleet and the planet. Jack opened a channel. This is Admiral Jack Harper of the Terran Alliance. The planet below is under our protection. Leave immediately. The Harvesters responded by firing. Their weapons were powerful, but the Hope's shields held. Return fire, Jack ordered. Targeted strikes only. The battle was short but intense. The Hope disabled the Harvester ships one by one without destroying them. When it was over, Jack sent a final message to their leader. Return to where you came from. Tell others what happened here. The days of preying on the weak are over. The Harvester fleet limped away. On the planet below, the people had seen the battle in their skies. To them, it must have looked like gods fighting. We should go before they start worshipping us, Olivia said with a small smile. As they prepared to leave the system, Jack received a surprising message. A small ship was approaching from the direction the harvesters had fled. It carried a single passenger, a Vrax. "I am Xylar," the Vrax said when they allowed him on board. "I was a prisoner of the harvesters. You saved me along with that world." Jack studied the Vrax carefully. "What do you want?" "My people have changed since you defeated us," Xylar said. "We've been watching how you built the Alliance, how you protect others instead of conquering them. Some of us want to join you." Jack was silent for a long moment. 10 years ago, he would have shot this Vrax on sight. Now he felt something different. "It won't be easy," he finally said. "There's a lot of history to overcome." "We're willing to try," Xylar replied. As the Hope set course for home, Jack looked at the stars streaking past. Humanity had snapped. Their vengeance had torn through the stars. But from that breaking had come something unexpected: healing, not just for themselves, but for an entire galaxy.